My parents canceled my 16th birthday, so my sister wouldn't feel left out. I stayed quiet. I moved away, and no one even noticed. Years later, my sister stole their savings and left them bankrupt. They came asking for help. I wasn't their son anymore. Hey Reddit, this one's been eating at me for a while, so I'm finally putting it down. Fair warning, this gets dark and takes a minute to tell, but the ending that went down a few months ago made the whole thing worth it. I'm 22 now. This story starts when I was 16, living in suburban Phoenix with my parents and my sister Lily. She's 6 years older than me, 28 now, and she's been the family princess since the day she was born. Not in a cute way either, in the kind of way that makes servers at restaurants exchange looks when she starts her routine. Dad owns a mid-size HVAC company that handles commercial contracts and high-end residential installs. Mom works pharmaceutical sales, pulling down decent commission when she actually focuses. Combined, they were bringing in around $180,000 a year. We lived in a gated community with the pool, the landscaping, the whole suburban Phoenix package. Should have been enough for two kids to grow up comfortable and stable. Should have been. Lily figured out early that drama got results. I'm talking calculated meltdowns. The kind where she'd work herself up to hyperventilating if she didn't get what she wanted. Threatening to hurt herself became her go-to move. By the time I was in middle school, my parents treated every tantrum like a 5-alarm fire that required the entire family to stop functioning until she calmed down. The double standards weren't even subtle. She got a brand new Lexus for her 16th birthday, pearl white with custom leather interior that cost more than most people's yearly salary. I got Dad's old work truck with 190,000 miles and a check engine light that had been on since 2019. When she crashed that Lexus texting and driving, Dad bought her an even newer model. When I got a speeding ticket for going 7 over, I got grounded for a month and had to pay the fine plus an extra $200 Dad added as a lesson. When she got arrested for shoplifting at a mall, I was the one who picked her up at 2 in the morning because Mom and Dad were too embarrassed to face the situation. I spent months tutoring her through math classes she kept failing, while my own requests for help got denied. It was always like that. Big checks for her, lectures for me. The thing is, I was the one actually keeping the house running while she created chaos. While Lily was out partying and treating her 6 years of on and off community college like an extended vacation, I was maintaining a 3.9 GPA, working 25 hours a week at an automotive parts store, and handling half the adult shit that should have been their job. Bills, groceries, Dad's paperwork, all of it. My parents had a script for all of it. Lily's more sensitive and needs extra support. You're naturally responsible and mature for your age. She's still finding herself. You're strong enough to handle disappointment. Every time I succeeded at something, it was expected and barely acknowledged. Every time Lily failed at something, it became this huge crisis where everything had to stop. When she finally finished community college 2 years late, the house was full of celebration, and I got handed cleanup duty after the party. I kept thinking it would change, that eventually they'd see I was putting in work and deserved some recognition, that my 16th birthday would be different, that they'd make it special because I'd been carrying so much weight for so long. I was wrong. 2 weeks before my 16th birthday, I asked if we could do something nice. Nothing crazy, just family and a few friends, maybe 15 people, backyard setup with a grill and music. I even offered to help pay for it with money from my job at the parts store. Mom and Dad seemed into the idea at first. We sent out invitations, planned the menu, ordered a cake. Then 3 days before the party, Lily found out her best friend was throwing a pool party the same day. She came home and immediately started her routine about feeling left out, and how having my party would make her feel excluded from her own family. How it would mess with her anxiety about not being included. How she needed the house to be calm that weekend, because she was dealing with some friendship drama. Mom caved first. She has a point, sweetie. Your sister's going through a difficult time socially. Maybe we should reschedule so she doesn't feel isolated. Dad backed her up without even hearing my side. Your sister needs support right now. You're mature enough to understand. We'll do something next weekend. I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice, just said okay and went to my room. That Saturday, the day that should have been my party, they took Lily shopping to cheer her up. Dropped about $800 on new clothes to help her feel better about her friendship situation. I worked my shift at the parts store and came home to an empty house. Lily's shopping bags were spread across the kitchen counter. The birthday cake I'd ordered was still sitting in the fridge, untouched, with my name on it in blue frosting. That was the moment. Not a blow-up, just a cold decision I made and never unmade. I'm leaving the day I turn 18. The next day I called everyone and canceled. Made up some excuse about being sick. My best friend Jordan could tell something was off but didn't push it. My biology teacher who I'd invited seemed concerned, but I brushed it off. The humiliation of canceling my own birthday party because my 22-year-old sister might feel left out was something I couldn't even admit out loud. On my actual 16th birthday, nobody mentioned it. Not at breakfast, not at dinner. Lily spent the day at the pool posting selfies. Mom was on a sales call until 8. Dad was at a job site. I worked my shift at the parts store, came home, and went to bed. That was it. My friend Jordan's mom noticed first. She pulled me aside at their house one weekend and said something I'll never forget. They treat you like an employee, not a son. You know that's not normal, right? I laughed it off at the time, but the words stuck. Because she was right. Turns out I wasn't the son. I was the software that kept everything running. Age 16 to 18 was a weird time. On the surface, everything looked normal. I went to school, worked my shifts, helped around the house, kept my grades up, but internally, I'd flipped a switch. I wasn't trying to be seen anymore. I was planning my way out. I opened a bank account at a different bank than my parents used. Every paycheck went straight to savings, except for the bare minimum for gas and expenses. I kept my phone bill separate, made sure all my important documents were in my room, started building credit with a secured card from the parts store's credit union program. My boss at the automotive shop, a guy named Martinez, noticed something had changed in me. I'd always been reliable, but now I was operating at a different level. I picked up every shift I could get, learned inventory systems, started studying for ASE certifications in my spare time. When he offered me assistant manager duties at 17, I took it, and the raise that came with it. Martinez was the first adult who treated me like being good at my job, actually got me something instead of just more work. When I casually mentioned my family situation one slow afternoon, he didn't pry. Just said if I ever needed anything, extra hours or a reference for housing, I should ask. That conversation mattered more than he probably realized. The favoritism at home kept escalating, but I'd stopped caring, stopped expecting anything different. Instead, I focused on what I could control. Saved aggressively, studied hard, worked my hours, kept my head down. Started doing less around the house too, on purpose. Stopped reminding Dad about bill due dates. Stopped organizing Mom's client follow-up spreadsheets. Stopped covering for Lily's messes. I also did something else that turned out to be critical. Started monitoring my credit through one of those free services. Froze my credit at all 3 bureaus when I turned 17. With Lily's history of financial chaos and access to family documents, I wasn't taking chances. That decision saved me later. By the time my 18th birthday was coming up, I had about $8,000 saved. A guaranteed admission to Arizona State with partial scholarships, a solid work history, and an apartment already lined up with 2 guys from school. I'd been moving small amounts of my stuff out for weeks. Important documents, winter clothes, electronics, anything that mattered. My room was getting emptier, but nobody noticed because nobody came in there anyway. My 18th birthday was on a Wednesday. I had to work the morning shift at the parts store. Woke up, got dressed, walked past Dad having coffee in the kitchen. He asked me to stop by the supply warehouse on my way home and grab some filters he needed for a job. Didn't say happy birthday. Didn't acknowledge the date at all. Mom was already gone for a sales call. Lily was still asleep at 9 in the morning. I worked my shift. Martinez came up to me mid-morning with a card from the shop guys and a $50 gift card to a steakhouse. Said happy birthday, told me to take the rest of the day off. I almost lost it right there in the stockroom, but held it together. Went home around 2. Dad was at a job site. Mom texted that she'd be late. Client dinner. Lily was on the couch watching reality TV. She looked up when I walked in and asked if I could order food later, because she was hungry and didn't feel like going out. Didn't ask why I was home early. Didn't say happy birthday. Didn't acknowledge me beyond asking for food. I walked into my room and locked the door. Pulled out the 3 duffel bags and 2 boxes I'd staged in my closet. Packed up the rest of my stuff piece by piece. Clothes, laptop, documents, photos I actually cared about. Unplugged the mini fridge I'd bought myself. Wrapped it in a blanket. Took my tools from the garage, the ones I'd bought with my own money that Dad kept borrowing. Wrote a note and left it on my bed with the house key. Since my birthdays don't seem to matter, and my role here is apparently unpaid maintenance staff, I'm removing myself from the situation. I'm not angry. I'm unavailable. Don't contact me unless you're ready to acknowledge how you've treated me for 18 years. I'll be fine. I've been taking care of myself anyway. Loaded my truck in 3 trips. Walked through the house one last time. Lily was still on the couch, hadn't moved. I closed the front door quietly behind me and drove to my new apartment across town. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. For the first time in my life, I was making a decision purely for me. No compromise, no consideration for their convenience, no trying to keep the peace. Just me choosing myself. The first few months on my own were harder than I expected, but I never once regretted leaving. The apartment was a decent 3-bedroom split with 2 guys from school who were hardly ever home. My share of rent was $650 plus utilities, tight on $2,100 a month, but doable if I stayed disciplined. I had to relearn everything. Meal prepping Sundays with chicken and rice, buying store-brand everything, setting reminders for bills because one missed payment could wreck my budget. And when something broke, it was on me. My truck needed new brake pads right before rent was due, so I spent a Saturday in 105-degree heat replacing them myself with a YouTube tutorial and bloody knuckles. That became normal. Fix it or go without. What hit hardest wasn't the struggle. It was the silence. I expected something. Anger, guilt, a half-assed apology. Anything that proved I'd mattered. But days passed. Then weeks. My room was empty. My truck gone. A note left on my bed. And still nothing. I checked my phone constantly at first, hating myself for it, waiting for a guilt-trip voicemail or an angry text. Instead, radio silence. It confirmed what I'd always suspected. I wasn't a son. I was a function. And functions don't get missed. They just get absorbed back into the system with slightly more chaos. Jordan kept me sane. He never pushed, just made sure I wasn't drowning in my own head. His family had me over for dinners, normal dinners, where people asked about your day because they actually cared. His mom packed me leftovers like it was routine. Work became my anchor. Martinez bumped me up to assistant manager. 32 steady hours, health insurance, responsibility that actually meant something. I started learning the business side, building relationships with regular customers, people who appreciated effort instead of exploiting it. Then classes at Arizona State started. Full course load plus work. Brutal. Some weeks were 5 hours of sleep and gas station caffeine. One night I had a fever of 102 and still dragged myself into work because rent doesn't care if you're dying. At 3 in the morning that night, sitting on the bathroom floor shivering, I wondered if I'd made a mistake. If surviving that house would have been easier than this. Then I remembered my 16th birthday, watching them take Vanessa shopping while my cake sat untouched in the fridge. That snapped me back. I got up, took more meds, slept 2 hours, and went to work. Closest I came to breaking, but there were wins. Rent paid on time, an emergency fund slowly growing, my credit score climbing, an A on a college exam. The first time I realized I was actually good at this stuff when I wasn't carrying a collapsing family on my back. Around month 3, I hit a milestone. Emergency fund at 500, grades solid, bills handled. So I bought myself something small but huge to me, a used PlayStation 4 for $120. 2 controllers, a couple games. I set it up in my room and just stared at it for a second. It was the first thing I bought just because I wanted it. Not a tool, not survival, just joy. Played for an hour before homework. It felt like proof I wasn't sinking. 6 months in, I finally had a rhythm. Work, school, sleep, repeat. Simple, stable. The loneliness was still there, but softer, manageable. I stopped checking my phone for messages that were never coming. And then, in January, I met Clem. Clem was working the register at a coffee shop near campus that I'd started going to between classes. We'd made small talk a few times, nothing serious, but one day she noticed I was studying financial statements and asked if I was in the business program. Turned out she was too. Different schedule, but same major. We started meeting up to study. Study sessions turned into coffee dates. Coffee dates turned into actual dates. She was easy to be around. Didn't need me to perform or prove anything, just liked me for who I was. When I eventually told her the basics of my family situation, she didn't make a big deal out of it. Just said that sounded rough and she was glad I got out. No pity, no drama, just acknowledgement. 3 months into dating, she invited me to dinner with her family. I was nervous as hell. Her parents lived in Mesa, about 30 minutes out. Normal house, normal neighborhood, her mom taught elementary school, and her dad worked for the city water department. Solid middle class, nothing flashy. Her brother Alvin was there too. 2 years older than Clem, worked as a welder into motorcycles and old trucks. He gave me the big brother evaluation when we met, sizing me up to see if I was good enough for his sister. I kept my answers short and honest. Didn't try to impress him, used a little deadpan humor when he tested me about my old truck. That got a laugh. But what really got me was how her parents treated me. They asked about my classes and actually remembered details from week to week. Asked about work, about my plans after graduation. Her mom kept offering more food, making sure I had enough. Her dad told stories about when he was in college working full-time. Normal stuff, but to me it felt surreal. At the end of the night, Alvin pulled me aside while everyone else was in the kitchen. Said he'd heard bits about my situation from Clem. Nothing detailed, but enough to know I'd been on my own for a while. Then he said something I didn't expect. You ever mess with motorcycles? Got a project bike in my garage. Could use another set of hands if you're interested. I'd always been into mechanical stuff, but never had the time or space to actually work on anything. I told him, yeah, I'd be down. Every Saturday morning, I'd head to Cam's place, and we'd work on his project. A beat-up 1984 Honda Nighthawk 650 he'd picked up for $800. The thing barely ran. Needed everything. Alvin was patient, never made me feel stupid for asking basic questions. Showed me how to read a service manual, how to organize tools, how to work through problems the right way. We started simple. Oil, battery, fluids. The carburetor took us 3 Saturdays to get right. Then came the electrical system where the previous owner had hacked everything. We spent weeks tracing wires, replacing connectors, fixing grounds. The work itself was satisfying, but what really mattered was the time. Alvin and I would wrench for a few hours. He'd order pizza around noon. We'd eat sitting on his garage floor talking about nothing important. Never brought up my family situation unless I did first. Just treated me like a person worth being around. After 4 months, we got the Nighthawk running. Alvin kicked it over and the engine fired clean. He took it around the block, came back grinning, then tossed me the keys. Your turn. First time I'd ever ridden a motorcycle. 2-minute crash course on clutch and shifting, then I rolled out of his driveway. The rush of that machine responding to me, something we'd built with our own hands, was unreal. Came back 10 minutes later grinning like an idiot. Alvin just nodded and said good, but it felt like approval I'd never gotten from my actual family. Around this time, I bought my own project. 1982, Yamaha Virago 750 off Craigslist for $600. Rough, neglected, covered in rust. Owner said it ran 2 years ago, but now wouldn't start. Perfect. Alvin helped me load it, and we started working on both bikes. The Virago became mine to figure out with Alvin coaching from the side. Saturday mornings became sacred. Wrench from 9 to 2, then head inside. That's when the PlayStation came into play. I'd started bringing my console over after Alvin mentioned he had a good TV setup. We'd game for a few hours after working on bikes, just decompressing. Started with racing games, then moved into co-op shooters. Just hanging out with zero expectations. That's when I figured out what actually being relaxed felt like. Got to the point where I'd show up with my controller, and Alvin would already have snacks ready. His wife would make lunch for us around noon. We'd eat while taking a break from wrenching, then finish up and transition to gaming. Clem's family became my safety net. Her mom would text me about bringing leftovers to my apartment. Her dad started calling me with random advice about car maintenance or school stuff. And Clem was steady, supportive, never pushed me to move faster than I was ready. One night, about a year into our relationship, Clem and I were at my apartment, and she asked point blank if I'd ever consider marrying her someday. Not a proposal, just a check-in. I said yeah, absolutely. She said good, because her family already considered me one of them, and she wanted to make it official when the time was right. A family I chose, not the one I was stuck with by biology. People who actually gave a shit about me. Age 20 to 22 was when everything clicked. I finished my associate degree, transferred to ASU full-time for my bachelor's in business management. Martinez promoted me to store manager at the parts shop when his district manager spot opened up. Solid salary, benefits, respect from the team. The Yamaha rebuild was finished, running smooth, and I'd started picking up small side work doing motorcycle repairs and flips. Nothing huge, but an extra $400 or $500 a month that went straight to savings. Alvin and I were tight. Saturday mornings wrenching. Saturday nights gaming. He'd started calling me his brother casually, not even making a thing of it. His parents treated me like a son. When I got promoted at work, Clem's mom made a celebration dinner. When I passed a certification exam, her dad took me out for a congratulations breakfast. Clem and I moved in together when I was 21. Got a decent 1-bedroom closer to campus, split rent, built a life together. She graduated that year and started working as an analyst at a healthcare company. We were both grinding, but it was shared effort, not me carrying someone else's weight. I proposed 6 months later. Nothing fancy, just the two of us at a state park where we'd gone hiking. She said yes before I even finished asking. We planned a small wedding for that fall, just close friends and family. Her parents insisted on helping with costs despite me offering to split it. They said it was what parents do. The wedding was simple. We got married that October, a little over 3 years after I left home. Outdoor venue in Scottsdale, about 60 people. Nothing fancy but everything we wanted. Alvin was my best man. Jordan and a few guys from work stood up with me. Clem's mom cried through the whole ceremony. Her dad shook my hand afterward and said he was proud to call me his son. That broke something in me I didn't know was still broken. We took photos, posted a few to social media with a simple caption. Just married, nothing dramatic. Comments were off because I didn't want to deal with randos, but the photos were public. I found out later through my aunt that mom saw the wedding photos and completely lost it. Not happy for me, furious. Furious that I looked that happy without them. That I'd built this whole life with Clem's family and never once needed them. Panicked about how it made them look to people who knew the real story. She'd been checking my social media for years apparently, keeping tabs, But those wedding photos broke the bullshit story she'd been telling people about me being the unstable one who needed space. I didn't know the full extent of what had been happening with my family until after they showed up. But once I heard the whole thing, it made sense. Once I was out, the stuff I'd been quietly handling didn't explode overnight. It just stopped getting done. Over the next several months, bills went late, mail piled up, paperwork got ignored until it turned into penalties. The house started falling into disrepair. The landscaping went to hell. Weeds took over the yard. And HOA notices started showing up taped to the front door. Neighbors started talking. But the real disaster was Lily. Without me as a buffer, my parents had to deal with her chaos directly for the first time. She dropped out of college, couldn't hold jobs, kept getting arrested. Shoplifting, DUI, more shoplifting. Each arrest meant lawyers, court costs, thousands in fees. That's when they started digging deeper into finances and discovered she'd been stealing from them for years. They didn't catch it because they never looked closely. Statements went paperless, mail piled up, and Lily was helping with errands. About 60 grand she'd straight up stolen, plus another 30,000 in debt she'd racked up in their names by forging documents and using their info. She tried to open something in my name too. Found out later she'd attempted 2 credit cards and a personal loan using my information. All of them bounced because my credit had been frozen since I was 17. Instead of cutting her off, my parents took out a second mortgage to cover everything. Dad borrowed against his business. Mom picked up a second job. Meanwhile, the community found out why I'd left. Parents started avoiding mine. Dad lost business contracts. Mom's pharma career took hits. Then Lily got involved with a cryptocurrency pyramid scheme and transferred 38,000 from their savings in one transaction. Gone within weeks. After that hit, the bottom fell out. Bankruptcy. The house gone. Everything else was just fallout. Dad's business collapsing under the debt, Mom getting demoted and losing her territory, both of them scrambling to stay afloat. They moved into a 900 square foot apartment in a rough neighborhood. Dad ended up working for a competitor doing basic installs. Mom took a third job at a retail store. The pressure destroyed their marriage. After 26 years together, they separated about a year after the bankruptcy. Dad moved in with his brother. Mom was working 60 hours a week just to cover rent. Both looked 10 years older than they should. They'd been planning their approach for weeks after seeing the wedding photos. Tracked me down using public records and social media breadcrumbs. My aunt accidentally mentioned which part store I managed during a conversation with Mom. They looked up the address, scoped it out, then showed up at Cam's place on a Saturday when they knew I'd be there. 4 months after the wedding, on a Saturday morning, I was in Cam's driveway working on a carburetor rebuild for a client bike when a car I didn't recognize pulled up. Older model sedan, dented passenger door. The kind of car you drive when you've sold everything else. Alvin looked up first, then said quietly, "You know these people?" My parents got out. They looked rough. Dad had lost weight, hair more gray, moving stiff like his back was worse. Clothes that didn't fit right, cheaper brands than he used to wear. Mom looked exhausted, older than she should have, dark circles under her eyes, hair showing gray roots she would have covered immediately in the old days. They stood there for a second, like they weren't sure what to do, looking around Cam's garage like they were planning what to say. I didn't stand up, just put down the socket wrench and waited. Alvin stayed where he was, hands still in his work gloves, silent backup. Dad spoke first, trying to sound in control but just sounding desperate. "Son, we need to talk. Can we go somewhere private?" Kept my voice level. "Nope. Anything you need to say, you can say here." Mom's eyes were already watery. "We saw your wedding photos. You look so happy. Why didn't you invite us?" Her voice broke on the last word. "Because you didn't even remember my 16th birthday? Or my 18th? Because you canceled my plans to manage Lily's feelings? Because you never treated me like family, you treated me like staff?" Dad got defensive. "We made mistakes, we admit that. But we're family. You can't just walk away from family." He said it like biology trumped everything they'd done. I already did. 4 years ago. Been doing fine since. Mom completely butchered Clem's name. Started going into her guilt routine about how they're struggling now, how Lily's having a really hard time, how they need advice and help getting back on their feet. She actually took a step toward the garage like she was planning to come inside. "Don't." She froze. I didn't raise my voice, didn't move, just stared until she stepped back. Her face went from fake sympathy to actual shock. Alvin made a slight movement. Not aggressive, just present. "Let me get this straight. You ignored me for 4 years. You noticed I was gone and still didn't reach out. Didn't apologize. Didn't even try to contact me until you saw I was doing well. Now you're here asking for help because Lily destroyed your finances and you can't fix it without me." Dad's face went red. "That's not fair. We did our best with difficult circumstances. Your best was canceling my birthday at 16 because Lily might feel left out. Your best was using me for free labor while spending thousands on her failures. Your best was forgetting I existed the day I turned 18. Mom started crying harder. We know we failed you. We're sorry. But you're successful now. You have a good life. Can't you find it in your heart to help us? We're desperate. Your desperation isn't my problem. The bluntness landed hard. Dad tried another angle. After everything we did for you, raising you, feeding you, giving you a home, let's be clear. I raised myself, fed myself with money I earned. You gave me a room and I paid for it by managing your life and cleaning up your mistakes. You don't get credit for the bare minimum. Alvin finally spoke. Think you guys should leave? Dad looked at him like he'd just noticed Alvin was there. Who the hell are you? I'm his brother. Alvin said it simple and firm. Mom looked between me and Cam, trying to process it. You replaced us. I found people who actually showed up. That's all it is. Mom tried once more. If you won't help financially, at least talk to us. Meet with us regularly. Let us be part of your life again. We're your parents. You had 18 years to be parents. You chose Lily every single time. You don't get to show up now asking for access just because everything collapsed. Dad's voice rose. You're being cruel. I'm done. Here's the deal. You contact me only through my aunt, and only for actual emergencies. You don't show up at my home. You don't show up at my work. You don't contact my wife. If you violate any of that, I'll make this legal. Trespass warning, police reports, whatever I have to do. You don't get to guilt trip me about family after proving for 18 years that I wasn't family to you. Mom looked broken. Please don't do this. We've lost everything. You lost everything because you enabled Lily into being a 28-year-old child who commits fraud. That's your consequence, not mine. I already paid what I owed this family. I'm done. Alvin moved between me and my parents, not aggressive, just making it clear this was done. Dad started to say something else, but Alvin cut him off. You heard him. Time to go. They stood there another few seconds, maybe hoping I'd crack, but I just stared back with nothing. Eventually, they turned and got back in their car, drove away. After they left, I pulled out my phone and texted my aunt, documenting this. My parents showed up at my friend's house unannounced. If they attempt contact again outside emergencies, I'm filing a trespass warning and restraining order. Need you to confirm you received this message. She texted back immediately. Received. I'm sorry they did that. They asked me where you worked and I mentioned the store without thinking. I didn't know they'd actually show up. I told her it was okay, not her fault, but to please not share any information about me going forward. Monday morning, I called the parts store and briefed the assistant manager on the situation, gave him photos of my parents from social media, told him if they showed up asking for me to have them removed and call the police if they refused. He took it seriously, made notes, said he'd let the rest of the team know. Alvin waited until I put the phone away, then looked at me. You good? Yeah. I sat back down, picked up the socket wrench. I'm good. We worked in silence for a few minutes. My hands were steady. The confrontation had been easier than I expected. Maybe because I'd had 4 years to prepare for it, or maybe because I genuinely didn't need them anymore. Alvin eventually broke the silence. For what it's worth, you handled that perfect. Had 4 years to practice. We finished the carb rebuild, cleaned up, went inside. Clem had seen the car from the window and texted asking if I was okay. Told her I was fine. Explained what happened. She came over after work and we ate together. Normal Saturday evening. The confrontation with my parents already felt like it happened to someone else. That night, lying in bed with Clem, she asked me if I felt bad about how I'd handled it. I thought about it honestly. No, they didn't want me. They wanted what I could do for them. She squeezed my hand. Good. You deserve better. Yeah, I do. The weeks after were quiet. No contact through my aunt. No surprise visits. Then about 2 months later, I got a call from an unknown number while closing up the parts store. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Lily. Haven't heard her voice in over 4 years. She sounded different, shakier, started talking fast about being in therapy now, realizing how toxic she was, how she destroyed everyone's lives, including mine. Said she was working on accountability and making amends. The whole speech sounded rehearsed. I let her finish. Then I asked one question. Are mom and dad paying for this therapy? She hesitated. Yeah, but that's not the point. I'm actually trying to change. The point is you're 28 years old and still depending on them to fund your recovery from the damage you caused. You're apologizing while actively continuing the same pattern. She tried to argue, but I cut her off. You want to make amends? Get a full-time job. Move into your own place. Pay mom and dad back every dollar you stole. When you've done that for a year straight without their support, call me back. Until then, this apology is just more of you wanting credit for the bare minimum. She started crying, said I was being unfair. I told her trying doesn't count when you're doing it on someone else's dime. Then I hung up. Clem asked about it when I got home. I explained the call. She asked if I felt bad. I don't. Lily's apology wasn't about making things right. It was about making herself feel better. That was 3 months ago. And after that, nothing. No follow-up. No effort. They tried the guilt angle, the desperation angle, the apology angle. None of it worked because I'm not the same kid they used to manipulate. Last Saturday, Alvin and I finished another project. A 1979 Honda CB750 we'd been restoring for 8 months. Deep blue paint, engine running perfect. We took it for a test ride, Arizona highways at sunset. Nothing but open road and a machine we built with our own hands. When we got back to his place, we parked the bikes and headed inside. His wife had made dinner, Clem came over, and we all ate together. After dinner, Alvin and I fired up the PlayStation and ran a few matches. Normal Saturday. Peace. This is what winning looks like. Not some dramatic revenge or reconciliation. Just a normal evening with people who value you. Building a life that doesn't include chaos or manipulation. My parents chose Lily over me for 18 years. They taught me I didn't matter. I learned the lesson and applied it back. They wanted access. I chose peace. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.